The first time I saw them do it, I was 3 days into my exchange placement at Vethkai Academy, and still learning which corridor led to the dining hall. I heard the sound before I saw anything. A soft crack, like someone snapping a thin, dry branch. Then silence. Then a low sound that I still cannot fully describe, somewhere between a moan and a whistle, the kind of sound a creature makes when it has been hurt so many times that even the pain comes out quietly now. I turned the corner and saw her. She was Velhiri, one of the bird-like species that made up about a third of the Academy's population. Tall, narrow-shouldered, with feathers that ran from the crown of her head down across wide folded wings. Her name, I would learn later, was Sael, and her wings that morning were gray, not naturally gray. Velhiri wings shift color with emotion the way a human face flushes or pales. Gray meant something specific. Gray meant she had stopped feeling anything at all, because feeling things had become too expensive. 2 older students stood behind her, both Rethkai, the dominant reptilian species, broad and scaled and entirely confident in the way that only people who have never faced real consequences can be. One of them held a single long feather between 2 fingers, a primary flight feather. He had just pulled it, not torn it out fully, just bent and cracked the shaft at the base, enough to cripple the feather's function, not enough to leave a visible wound. He dropped it on the floor. They walked away laughing. Sael stood very still. Then she bent down, picked up the feather, and folded it inside her wing like she was hiding evidence. She walked in the opposite direction without looking up once. I stood in that corridor for a long time. I am from a small town in the north of England. My name is Nora Ellison. I am 17 years old. I am 5 feet 4 inches tall, and I have approximately 0 physical advantages over any species at this academy. Humans are considered the galaxy's most average people. We live short lives. We bruise easily. We need 8 hours of sleep and 3 meals a day, or we become unreliable. The Vethkai Council approved our exchange program mostly out of curiosity, the way you might invite a mildly interesting insect to observe your garden. What they did not understand, what almost no one in the galaxy seemed to understand yet, is that being average at everything physical means humans put all their energy somewhere else entirely. I went to find Sael. It took 2 days. She did not eat in the main hall. She used maintenance corridors to get between classes. She sat in the back of every room and left before anyone else. She was very good at being invisible. She had clearly been practicing for a long time. I found her in a secondary observation deck on the Academy's lower ring, a small room with a wide curved window that looked out at the planet below. She was sitting on the floor with her wings folded so tightly around herself that she looked half her normal size. She was doing nothing, just sitting. I sat down next to her on the floor, not across from her, next to her, facing the same window. She said nothing. I said nothing. We watched the planet turn for about 10 minutes. Then I said quietly, "How long has this been happening?" She went very still. I said, "I saw them yesterday morning, in the East Corridor. I am not going to pretend I did not." Another long silence. Then she said, in careful translated standard, "Since the 2nd week of term." It was now week 11. "Does anyone know?" I asked. "The hall monitor on level 6 filed a report in week 3, she said. "The administration said there was insufficient evidence of intent." I nodded slowly. "And your own people? Other Velhiri students?" She made a sound that I had already learned meant something like a bitter laugh. A Velhiri who cannot fly is not someone other Velhiri wish to be seen with. It is considered, she paused, searching for the word, contagious. Bad luck. I looked at her. Her feathers were gray. Her eyes were fixed on the window. She had the posture of someone who had decided, somewhere along the way, that hoping for things was a waste of energy. I felt something move in my chest. Not pity. Something older and angrier than pity. "Okay," I said. "Tell me everything." Here is what I knew about bullies by the time I was 17. They are never as invincible as they look. Every system that protects them has a weakness. Every person who ignores the problem has a pressure point. And every bully, without exception, depends on one thing above all else: the belief that no one is paying close enough attention to stop them. I paid close attention. I spent the next week doing nothing dramatic. I watched, I mapped, I noted times, locations, the specific individuals involved. There were 4 of them total, led by a Rethkai student named Vrak, who was 2 years above us and whose family apparently had some historical connection to the Academy's founding board. That explained the administration's convenient blindness. I noted that too. I found my 2 fellow human exchange students in the library on a Thursday evening. Owen Clark was a biochemistry student from Cardiff with paint-stained fingers and the habit of solving problems on napkins. Lena Marsh was from a part of Glasgow that had taught her, young, Exactly how power structures collapse when you remove the right piece at the right moment. She had been watching the Rethkai group since week 2. She already had her own notes. We compared everything. The problem, Lena said, spreading her pages across the table, is that the school tribunal requires a witness account, plus physical evidence, plus a formal complaint from the injured party. Sael filed nothing because she knows what happens to Velhiri who make formal complaints against students from founding families. The complaint disappears and she gets grounded for causing disruption. Owen nodded. So we need to make the evidence impossible to dismiss. We need to make them do it in public, I said. With witnesses they cannot discredit. Both of them looked at me. Vrak is not careful because he has been careful, I said. He is careless because nothing has ever required him to be careful. He does not actually believe he will ever be stopped, which means if I make him feel like he is about to lose control of the situation, his first instinct will be to reassert dominance. Loudly, in front of people. You want to provoke him, Lena said. I want to give him the opportunity to expose himself, I said. There is a difference. Owen pulled out a napkin. What do we need? We needed 3 things. First, a formal complaint filed with the Interspecies Student Tribunal, not the Academy administration. The tribunal answered to the Galactic Compact directly. The administration could sit on a school-level complaint indefinitely. They could not sit on a compact-level inquiry. I helped Sael draft the complaint over 4 evenings. She was reluctant. I did not push her. I sat next to her while she wrote, and when she stopped and stared at the page and her feathers went gray, I just waited until they came back. She filed it on a Tuesday. Second, we needed documentation that showed a pattern. Not just one incident, but 9 weeks of incidents. Owen had cross-referenced the Academy's corridor access logs, which were technically public record, with the timing of Sael's reports to the hall monitor. The logs placed Vrak and his group in the same corridors as Sael at each time she had reported contact. It was not proof by itself, but it was a shape. It was the shape of something deliberate. Third, we needed the moment. I knew it was coming. I had watched Vrak for 2 weeks by then. He was the kind of person who needed audiences. When he felt that his authority was being questioned, he performed. It was as reliable as gravity. The tribunal inquiry was filed on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, word had moved through the student population. By Wednesday afternoon, Vrak knew. I watched his face across the dining hall when one of his group leaned over and told him. He was not afraid. He was annoyed. He was the kind of person who processes threat as insult. Thursday morning, I made sure Sael walked through the East Atrium at the same time Vrak's group crossed it on their way to advanced theory. I did not tell her what I was doing, not entirely. I told her to walk straight, look ahead, and not stop. I told her she had done nothing wrong and she never had. I told her that in approximately 4 minutes it would be over. The atrium had 43 students in it. It had 3 faculty passing through. It had a standard Academy recording array installed in the ceiling for security purposes, which the administration conveniently forgot to mention when they claimed they had no footage of previous incidents. Lena had confirmed the array was active. Owen had confirmed it covered the full atrium floor. Sael walked through. Vrak saw her. He moved across the atrium floor with 2 of his group behind him. I was standing near the east archway. I did not look at him. I looked at Sael. She was walking straight. Her wings were tight, but she was walking. Vrak reached out and caught one of her primary feathers between 2 fingers. I said, loudly, clearly, into the quiet of the atrium. The tribunal received your name this morning, Vrak. They flagged your family's board connection as a conflict of interest for the school investigation. The compact mediator arrives next week. He froze. Every head in the atrium turned. He looked at me. Then he looked at his fingers, still holding Sael's feather. Then he looked at the 43 students and 3 faculty members who were all looking directly at him. He had been careless for 9 weeks because nothing had required him to be careful. He did not know how to be careful under pressure. He had never learned. He released the feather and stepped back and said something about how this was a misunderstanding. Lena was already filing the supplement to the tribunal report from her communicator across the atrium. Security footage, witness list, timestamp. The compact mediator arrived in 6 days, not 7. The tribunal hearing took 3 sessions. I gave my account. Owen gave his. Lena presented the access log analysis. 14 other students, some Velhiri, some not, gave accounts of things they had seen and said nothing about until now. The hall monitor from level 6 gave an account of the report that had been dismissed in week 3 and explained, carefully, that she had been told by her supervisor to close the file. Vrak's family connection to the board did not help him. It became, instead, part of the record. He and 2 of his group were expelled before the end of term. The 3rd received a suspension and a mandatory conduct review. The Academy administration received a formal compact advisory, which is a document that functions approximately like a searchlight being pointed at your practices while someone else holds the switch. 2 weeks after the hearing, I was sitting on the observation deck again. The same small room, the same curved window, the same planet turning slowly below. Sael sat next to me. She had been sitting next to me a lot lately. We had developed the comfortable habit of not needing to fill silences. After a while, she said, "I want to ask you something and I want you to answer honestly." I said, "Okay." "You are human," she said. "You have been here less than 1 term. You have no social position here, no leverage, no historical standing. You made enemies doing this. 2 of Vrak's group have influential families who will remember your name. You have complicated your entire exchange placement." She paused. "Why did you do it?" I thought about the right way to say what I actually believed. "My species," I said, "spent about 10,000 years hurting each other in every way imaginable. We hurt each other over land, over resources, over which version of a story about the universe we thought was correct. We were extraordinarily good at it. We still are, sometimes. We have not fixed ourselves completely." I looked at the window. But something happened in all of that. Somewhere in all the damage we did and survived and witnessed and caused, we developed this thing, this wiring, where we cannot watch it happen to someone else without something in us going wrong. She was listening carefully. Velhiri listen with their whole bodies. "We cry at strangers," I said. "We stop our cars for injured animals. We build organizations to help people on the other side of the planet who we will never meet. Other species find this baffling, soft, inefficient." I shook my head. "It is not soft. It is the thing that survived everything else we were. All the worst parts of us fell away, eventually, or are falling away. But this part stayed. The part that cannot look at someone being broken and do nothing." Sael's wings shifted slightly. A faint color moved through the gray. Something pale and uncertain. "You were being broken every day," I said. "What did you think I was going to do? Turn around?" The color in her wings moved again. Warmer now. "I am human," I said. "We do not know how to look away. It is almost embarrassing. We get laughed at for it across the galaxy. Short-lived, soft, emotionally chaotic humans who cry at music and cannot sleep when someone they care about is suffering." I glanced at her. "But when something needs stopping, it gets stopped. That is not separate from the crying and the caring. It is the same thing. It is exactly the same thing." Sael did not speak for a long time. When she did, her voice was quieter than usual. "In Velhiri culture," she said, "when someone saves your flight, there are 3 calls, one for greeting between equals, one for gratitude that words cannot hold, and one," she paused, "for the feeling of being safe, for the first time, or for the first time in a long time." "Will you teach me?" I asked. She looked at me. Her wings moved. The color that came through them then was not gray. It was gold, pale at first, then brighter, spreading from the center outward like something waking up. She taught me all 3 calls over the following weeks. I practiced until I could produce something that was not quite right, being human, having the wrong kind of throat, but was close enough that she always knew which one I meant. On the last day of term, I stood on the observation deck with Owen and Lena and watched Sael step out onto the external platform above us. She had been cleared by the Academy's medical unit 2 weeks earlier. Full wing function restored. The feathers had grown back slower than normal, but stronger, the medical staff said, which they did not fully have a scientific explanation for. She spread her wings. She was gold from edge to edge. Full, open, unfolded, unafraid. The light from the planet below caught her, and she was, without question, one of the most extraordinary things I had ever seen in my life. She launched. Owen made a sound that was approximately a word, but not quite. Lena stood very still with her arms folded, and her jaw set the way she always did when she was feeling something she considered excessive. I watched Sael arc out across the open space above the Academy's ring, climbing fast, banking hard, cutting back on herself in a long spinning movement that I later learned was called a joy spiral. A thing Velhiri do when their bodies remember what they are built for. I made the 3rd call, quietly, to myself, in my imperfect human approximation of it. The one for being safe, for the first time, or for the first time in a long time. She heard it. She banked once more, tilting her wings toward me in something that was not quite a bow and not quite a salute, but held something of both. I put my hand up. She climbed until she was a gold point against the dark, and then she was gone, and I stood there in the light from the turning planet below, and thought about how a species that cannot fly, and sleeps too much, and cries too easily, Still managed, somehow, to give someone back their wings. It is not the worst thing we have ever done. Not even close, but it might be one of the best. We are not done. We are never done. But we keep going. We see someone being broken and we do not look away. We have never known how. That is what we brought to the stars. That is what we carry. It turns out that is enough.